Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so today I will be sharing to you guys what are carbohydrates. So, chemically, carbohydrates are compounds that contain carbon as well as hydrogen and oxygen in the same proportion as in water. They include simple carbohydrate, also known as simple sugar, and complex carbohydrate, which include starches and fiber. So carbohydrates are the primary source of energy. So for simple carbohydrate, as we know, basic unit of carbohydrate is a single sugar molecule, which is monosaccharide. When two sugar molecules combine, they form a disaccharide. So both mono and disaccharide are known as simple sugar. Three most common monosaccharide is glucose, fructose, and galactose. So glucose is commonly referred to as blood sugar. It is produced in plants by the process of photosynthesis. Rarely occur as monosaccharide in food, most often found as part of disaccharide in starch. For fructose, fructose is a monosaccharide that is sweeter than glucose, usually found in fruit and vegetable. For galactose, occur most often as part of lactose, the disaccharide in milk, and rarely present as a monosaccharide in food supply. So for complex carbohydrate is made up of many monosaccharides linked together in chain. Short chains of 3 to 10 monosaccharides are called as oligosaccharide, and longer chains are called polysaccharide. So for oligosaccharide, they cannot be digested by enzymes in human stomach and small intestine. So basically, we cannot eat oligosaccharide. So for glycogen is the storage form of carbohydrate in animal, made up of highly branched chains of glucose molecule. So this branched structure allows them to be broken down quickly when glucose is needed. Next is starch. Starch is storage form of carbohydrate in plants, and it is found in two forms: amylose, which consists of long straight chain of glucose molecule, and aminopectin, which consists of branched chains of glucose molecule. And then next is fiber. Fiber is carbohydrate and lignin. Lignin is a substance that are not carbohydrate but are classified as fiber. So for fiber, we have two types of fiber, which is soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. So for soluble fiber, food sources of soluble fiber is oat, apple, bean, and seaweed. So for insoluble fiber, it is a fiber that cannot be broken down or do not dissolve in water. So that is all from me.
Next, I will talk about carbohydrates in the digestive tract. So firstly, digestion of starch begins in the mouth, where it breaks down into shorter polysaccharides and maltose by the action of enzyme salivary amylase. So before enter the small intestine, the salivary amylase will be inactivated by the acid in the stomach. So in the small intestine, the breakdown of starch will be completed by pancreatic amylase. The saccharides such as maltose, sucrose, lactose are then broken down into monosaccharides, which is glucose, galactose, and fructose, by the enzymes attached to the villus in the intestine wall. So all these resulting monosaccharides are then absorbed and transported into liver via hepatic portal circulation. Other than that, for fiber, it cannot be digested by human digestive enzymes, but are still important to maintain healthy bowel function. So in the large intestines, the fibers are broken down by bacterial microflora, producing acids and gases. And furthermore, different fiber structures will actually determine the physical properties and effect on the digestive tract. So for example, soluble fibers such as pectins, gums, will absorb water forming viscous solutions, which slows down the rate of nutrient absorption. So this will cause the distension and slows emptying. And insoluble fibers such as wheat bran will increases the bulk in the intestine. So together, this will allow easier stool evacuation and stimulates peristalsis better. So that is all from me.
Okay, next, I will explain about carbohydrate metabolism. It actually refers to the process that involves the breakdown of carbohydrates, which include simple sugars and complex sugars into glucose. Glucose is the main energy source for our body cells, tissues, and organs. Carbohydrates also have other functions. For example, galactose is essential in nervous tissue. It also combines with glucose to produce lactose in women who are producing breast milk. Other monosaccharides that are vital to the body are deoxyribose and ribose. These sugars are components of DNA and RNA that contain the genetic information for protein synthesis. So how does this metabolism work? When body cells receive a supply of glucose through the bloodstream, it will be regulated by the liver and hormones secreted from the pancreas. When the glucose reaches the cells, it will be metabolized to generate ATP. So for example, after we consume food, sugars are absorbed and travel through the hepatic portal vein to the liver to be metabolized and produce energy. The absorbed glucose can be used either immediately or stored in the liver and muscle for later use depending on the needs. So when blood glucose levels rise too high or drop too low, hormones from the pancreas will react to decrease or increase the levels. When blood glucose levels rise right after a meal, it is called a glycemic response. So when fat and protein are combined with foods which is high in carbohydrates, it may cause our stomach to empty more slowly, which may delay the rate at which glucose enters the small intestine. As a result, the blood glucose rises more slowly. Fiber also slows the rise in blood glucose due to foods high in fiber take longer to leave the stomach, and fiber in the small intestine slows the absorption. Besides, if we only consume sugar, for instance, drinking a sugar-sweetened soft drink on an empty stomach, it can cause blood glucose to increase rapidly. However, a mixed meal like chicken rice and green beans will result in mixed composition like starch, fat, protein, and fiber, and it will take only about 30 to 60 minutes before blood glucose begins to rise. Next, insulin action occurs if blood glucose rises, where it will trigger the pancreas to secrete the hormone insulin and allow glucose to be taken into the body cells. In liver, insulin promotes the storage of glucose as glycogen, and to a lesser extent, into fat. While in muscle, insulin stimulates the uptake of glucose for energy production and the synthesis of muscle glycogen for energy storage. Insulin also stimulates protein synthesis, and in fat storing cells, it increases glucose uptake from the blood, decreasing levels to the normal range. So after several hours of eating, when blood glucose levels begin to decrease, glucagon is released by the pancreas. It stimulates the breakdown of glycogen into glucose and also glucose production by gluconeogenesis. That's all. Thank you.
I will continue with glucose metabolism. Glucose metabolism occurs through cellular respiration, produce carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. The process involves four interconnected stages, which is glycolysis, pyruvate processing, the citric acid cycle, and the electron transport chains. Glycolysis in the cytoplasm breaks glucose into two pyruvate molecules, generate two ATP molecules per glucose. Pyruvate process occurs in the mitochondria, where carbon is removed from pyruvate to form acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA enters the citric acid cycle combined with oxaloacetate to form alpha-6 carbon molecule, which gradually lose carbon dioxide until oxaloacetate is regenerated. Produce two ATP molecules per glucose. Electron released in previous stage are shuttled to the electron transport chains located on the inner mitochondrial membrane. The electron transport chain pass electron from one molecule to another, generate ATP, and eventually combine with oxygen to form water. Next, using protein to make glucose. When carbohydrate intake is low, blood glucose level decrease, trigger the release of glucagon from the pancreas. Glucagon prompts the liver to break down glycogen into glucose and stimulate gluconeogenesis. And then the production of the new glucose from amino acid primarily in liver and kidney cells. Gluconeogenesis required ATP and use 3 carbon molecules, primary source from amino acids. Fatty acids cannot be used for gluconeogenesis because their breakdown only 2 carbon molecules, which is acetyl-CoA. Glucose synthesized via gluconeogenesis released into the bloodstream to maintain normal blood glucose level. Epinephrine, as we know as adrenaline, can also stimulate gluconeogenesis, especially when carbohydrate intake is low. Adrenaline can also stimulate gluconeogenesis when it provides glucose when we are in stress situation. Gluconeogenesis is crucial for immediate glucose needs, especially when carbohydrate intake is low, but it utilizes protein that could otherwise be used to muscle growth and other maintenance. So carbohydrate is needed to break down fat also. So fat metabolism required a small amount of carbohydrate to complete the breakdown. So fatty acids are break down into acetyl-CoA, which need to combine with oxaloacetate. Then it derived from carbohydrate metabolism to enter the citric acid cycle for energy production. When carbohydrate is decreased, oxaloacetate is limited and acetyl-CoA cannot be fully metabolized, leading to the production of ketones by the liver. And then ketones are released into the bloodstream and utilized by tissues like heart, muscle, and kidney for energy. Ketone production is a normal response to starvation and very low carbohydrate diets. And even the brain can adapt to the using ketones for energy. Excess ketones are excreted in urine, but if production is high or fluid intake is low, ketones can accumulate in the blood, causing the ketosis. Milk ketosis, common during moderate calorie restriction or weight loss diets, can lead to the pening, mulut berbau, mulut kering dan juga hilang deria rasa. High level of ketones dapat dilihat in untreated diabetes that can increase blood acidity dan dapat menyebabkan kesan buruk kepada manusia seperti koma dan juga kematian. That's all from me. Then I will pass to the next presenter.
Okay, for this part of carbohydrate, we have abnormal glucose regulation. Abnormal glucose regulation can result from either abnormal level of these hormones or abnormal response of blood glucose levels are controlled by insulin, glucagon, and other hormones. Abnormal glucose regulation have 5. First, diabetes mellitus, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, gestational diabetes, and the last one is hypoglycemia. For diabetes mellitus, is a major public health in the United States. It characterized by high blood glucose levels due to lack of insulin, which or an unresponsiveness of body cells in insulin. Elevated glucose causes damage to large blood vessel, leading to increased risk of heart disease and stroke. Elevated glucose ni dia macam high blood sugar ataupun hypoglycemia. And then diabetes mellitus can cause changes in small blood vessel and nerves, which leading to kidney failure, blindness, nerve dysfunction, and amputation ni kita kena buat surgery untuk remove part of the limb. And then we have 3 types of diabetes, which is type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes, which occur during pregnancy. For type 1 diabetes, it diagnosed before the age of 30, and it accounts for only 5 to 10% of diagnosed cases. Diabetes 1 trigger of the disease is still unknown, but the research is believed it is to be an autoimmune disease, which is the immune system destroy the insulin secreting cell of the pancreas. It's because a cell has been damaged or destroyed, and then insulin production is reduced. For the type 2 diabetes, type 2 diabetes is common form of diabetes. It affects almost 16 million adults in US, and this diabetes is higher among minority groups. This diabetes also due to combination of genetic and lifestyle factors. It is risk in individuals who are overweight, in those who are type with more fat in the abdominal region, and those with a family history of diabetes. It is usually appears in person over of age 40, but lifestyle and dietary factors in US, such as inactivity and excess body weight, have been contributed to an increasing of the incidence among younger individuals. In this diabetes, insulin secretion may be low, normal, or even elevated, but the blood glucose level are high because the body cells are insensitive to the effect of insulin. Large amount of insulin are required to allow the cells to take enough glucose to meet their energy needs. And then for gestational diabetes, it occurs only in pregnancy. This diabetes caused by the hormonal changes that occur during pregnancy in the woman's body. The high level of glucose in the mother's blood is the risk of complication for the unborn child. This gestational diabetes appears once the pregnancy is complete and the hormone will turn to non-pregnant levels, which is the normal level. However, the individual who have gestational diabetes have an increased risk for developing type 2 diabetes in the future. For the diabetes system, diabetes result without sufficient insulin glucose cannot dominate. Then cells that require insulin to take up glucose glucose are stopped for glucose. So cell can use glucose without insulin, are exposed to reaching high level of glucose. So for the symptoms of diabetes, which excessive thirst, frequent urination, blood pressure, and weight loss. Excessive thirst and frequent urination occur because blood glucose levels rise so high that the kidneys excrete glucose, drawing fluid with it and increasing the volume of urine. For the blurred vision occur when excess glucose enters the lens of the eye, causing the eye to swell. Weight loss and impaired growth in children occur because glucose cannot be used for energy, so the body responds of starvation, which is breaking down fat and protein to supply the food. If we take carbohydrate for fatty acid metabolism, ketones are formed and released into the blood. Some ketones are used as fuel by muscle and adipose tissue, but in type 1 diabetes, they are produced more rapidly than they can be used. Thus, it accumulates in the blood. This elevation of ketones causes the increase of acidity of the blood, which is called ketoacidosis. In type 2 diabetes, ketoacidosis usually does not develop because there is enough insulin to allow some glucose to be used. And for the last part is hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is a low blood glucose that causes some symptoms, which is irritability, nervousness, sweating, shakiness, anxiety, rapid heartbeat, headache, weakness, and sometimes seizure and coma. It also can occur in diabetes as a result of over medication. In people without diabetes, hypoglycemia can result from abnormal production or response to insulin or other hormones. Both blood sugar regulation. There is two forms of hypoglycemia. First is reactive hypoglycemia and then fasting hypoglycemia. Reactive hypoglycemia occurs in response to the consumption of high carbohydrate. The rise in blood glucose from the carbohydrate stimulates insulin release. Too much insulin is fed, result rapid blood in blood glucose to an abnormal so that the treatment for this type of hypoglycemia is a diet that prevents rapid changes in blood response when low carbohydrate and high protein and fiber are required. So for fasting hypoglycemia, it's not related to food intake. It is abnormal insulin secretion, result in episode of low blood glucose level. This condition, it is often caused by. That's all for the last part